Okay, we're going to call this meeting of the April 4th Upper Delaware Council into order. Give it a pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Town of Hancock.
Here.
Town of Fremont. Town of Delaware.
Present.
Town of Coshocton. Town of Tustin. Here. Town of Highland.
Here.
Town of Lumberland. Here. Town of Deer Park.
Here.
Damascus Township.
Here.
Berlin Township.
Here.
Nackawaxen Township.
Here.
Shahola Township.
Here.
Westfall Township. State of New York. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Here.
Delaware River Basin Commission.
Here.
National Park Service.
Here. First item on the agenda is approval of the meetings from the March 7, 2013 meeting. So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the March 7th meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Call for a vote. Aye. Motion's carried. Okay, we're going to have public comment on the agenda. We know we have two guests tonight who are here to discuss an item that's been brought up in at least one committee. It's a very important issue to the Pennsylvania townships. We have one guest from Pike, one guest from Wayne County. Joel.
Go ahead, Aaron, I'll give you lead.
Well, I'd like to thank the council for making the time to listen to what Shahola has to say regarding a proposed set of.
Could you introduce yourself to
Sure.
everyone?
I'm Aaron Robinson. I'm the chairman of the Shahola Planning Commission, and I'm here on behalf of Shahola to discuss this set of new proposed regulations. They're not operative yet, but the time is growing close as far as the comment period and the enactment. So we learned of these regulations about a month ago, and we were fortunate enough to get a head start looking these things over, because being on the Planning Commission, everything affects our zoning or our subdivision laws. So whenever we get new regulations, we have to look at them in terms of what does it do to Shahola. So I was delegated the task of evaluating these new policies, and my eyebrows went up, because in essence it usurps our zoning to the extent that whatever we have in place would be secondary to what these regulations would mandate. Now, just to bring you up to speed, the regulations concern on-lot sewage disposal systems for individual residences. It's the way the state would like townships to regulate and to have designed septic systems. And currently, design is in place that's been quite effective. And I'll add another caveat to this regulation. This is targeted for areas of extreme value or high quality waters. So we're only talking about parts of the state that have already achieved a very high level of water quality. And naturally, the Delaware Valley, Wayne and Pike County, probably 95% of the area is of either EV or HQ quality levels. So, because these new regulations work on kind of a credit basis, where you have to do certain things to abate nitrates, it's focused in on nitrates. they set up a set of best management practices, BMPs. And if you look at the handout, I'm just trying to give you a little background on the mechanics of this thing so I could go into the implications. But what it does is it assumes that there's 45 milligrams per liter of nitrate being disposed of or being put out by a residential septic system. And that 45 concentration, they want to bait it to 0. So they've created a set of BMPs, methods that they give you credit for to mitigate, to abate the 45 milligrams per liter. And the way it works is they have a varied techniques, riparian buffers, forest riparian buffers, in-ground ditches, setbacks, lot sizes, and they give you a point system. So the objective is to get 45 points by the methods that you implore, or implement rather, to get to 0. And these aren't cheap, and some of them aren't achievable on pre-existing lots. So it, just by the nature of what they want done, it interferes with our zoning. I kind of made a list of the implications, but in a nutshell, Shahola has already pre-existing and conforming lots. So these lots were perked when they were subdivided, they met the standards, and now if this thing goes into effect, whatever was done in the past becomes irrelevant, because now the landowner or the developer is burdened to offset these nitrate concentrations. So where someone has purchased a lot with anticipation of using that lot, he might not be able to, or through various expensive alternative methods, he might be able to use a lot, but it might cost him more than the lot was purchased for. And that's significant. And one of the other concerns that's major in Shahola is that we don't have a lot of commercial or neighborhood commercial districts. It's most of the land is rural development, so that where we have designated commercial development, we have smaller lot sizes because there's a limited amount of acreage available. If we apply this new set of regulations to some of those lots, because they're near an intermittent stream or just by various physical characteristics, the lots become unusable. So Shahola's objective to make available commercial space becomes unachievable. And how does it affect the Upper Delaware Council? Well, we're part of the river corridor, and if Shahola wanted to encourage some commercial use that is conducive to a tourist-type trade, Shahola might not be able to do that, as well with other towns along the river, should these regulations be enacted.
I have a question, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So I'm assuming that this is a regulation that they want to impose throughout the whole town, or just in certain areas around streams?
No, it's in areas that have high quality or EV, exceptional quality water.
So you only have water in certain areas of your town,
They-
or is it, or are the regulations for the
Well-
whole of Shahola?
The way they define a stream is anything that runs twice a year. So we're
So,
not talking about, Shahola
so you have
Brook, or
many, many parcels of land that are involved,
almost
or
all
would
of
be
Shahola's
under this
involved.
regulation?
Yes, almost all of Shahola's involved.
And why just nitrates? Nothing else concerns them?
That you'd have to ask the DEP. This focused in on nitrates, yes. This is a nitrate abatement program. Brian might have some.
Yeah, I can add a little clarification. When he's talking about a special protection watersheds, if you look at a map, and I'll come over and show it to you, we have them in orange, special protection watersheds, and all of Wayne and Pike County are in a special protection watershed, which is high quality, exceptional value water. There are other parts of the state that are in high quality, exceptional value watershed, special protection. However, the significance there is the purple shows that they're covered largely by national forests or state forests, where it's not privately owned property that's ever going to be developed anyway. So we're particularly being hit hard here in the Northeast because we have privately owned special protection watershed that we would like to develop at some point in time or have commercial activity.
I have a question. Do you know, or has the DRBC commented on this, since they seem to be wanting to get their fingers in everything? Because I would think it would
This is the
pertain
first
directly.
I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, right.
So-
That's cool.
Because usually the basic
So I'll
condition
make
I
notes
see
to
is-
go back and check.
Well, this is, it wasn't publicized at all.
Of course
If it
not.
wasn't for a few engineers and a few sewer enforcement officers bringing it to light, it wouldn't have gotten any attention.
But would it behoove the two counties to get the Basin Commission to comment on it?
I would think so.
Or form an
I would
opinion
think
on it? Because I know they're always searching for protections of waters and everything else, and I'd like to know what their opinion is on this.
But his issue has to do with, does the state regulation trump a local regulation?
It's still in the watershed.
Well,
And I mean,
it's
you guys
also an
seem to
issue
want to
of,
control the watershed.
it's also an issue of private property rights.
Well, I
because
understand that too.
when you have someone that owns a parcel of property that met the standards of the town, which met the standards of the state at the time. In other words, current law, this is enacted, and that lot
So
becomes.
they wouldn't be grandfathered
No,
under the old law?
there is no
There
grandfather.
is no grandfather.
It would just be,
Yes.
Would
And
that-
they're
could you sue them
using,
for
you know,
2
what
years?
they're doing is they're dovetailing this policy or these set of standards onto existing regulations. So it doesn't go through any late legislative overview. It's snuck in and then you're stuck with it. So,
Can I ask, what, I need to know more about nitrates. I mean, where do they come from? And
Farms, mostly.
From farms, is that?
well, nitrates are part of the effluent from a septic system, but the concentrations aren't really sufficient to impair water because we're already at that stage of high-valued water, high-quality water. So,
Don't you have regular town regulations, like in New York, we have the Board of Health, or Department of Health, and they say this is where the septic has to go, this is where the well has to go, this is how the drain field has
yeah,
to be.
there's-
So to prevent,
Well, it
for
sounds like the
instance, you
urban areas
polluting
are
your
trying to
neighbor,
protect
right?
it.
well, here, I'll give you an example.
It's usually what happens.
And this is an interesting example.
So much easier.
Drinking
But
water,
that's the intent of the
the
Department of
EPA
Health.
has a standard at 10 milligrams per liter of nitrates in drinking water. That's their cap. These regulations go to 0.
I don't know if that's achievable.
It's unattainable.
It is not achievable because of rain.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, how could you achieve that? So you're just gonna shut down?
Well, here's something that I'd like the council to look at. In 2010, there was a very extensive study on the water quality of the Delaware watershed. And their conclusion contradicts the need for this very policy. In no uncertain terms, if you look at the concentration of nitrates, what it does show is that they call it suburbanization or development. There's no parallel to residential outbuild and water impairment. So here on one side, the DEP is wanting to put higher restrictions on septic systems, and this recent study shows that it's unnecessary. So, I mean, the Department of Interior did a pretty extensive study in the valley, and that's why it's relevant to this council, is that study covers that area.
What is your township doing? You're coming to a council who has maybe a different mission, we'll figure that out. But what is Shahola Township doing as a your supervisors and whatnot? Are they taking, responding or reacting?
Yes, we've attended various meetings, and we became knowledgeable on the subject so that we could prepare a comment
I
in
see
opposition of these standards.
from that map, it's all, virtually all of Pike and Wayne County.
Yeah.
What about the commissioners, the county commissioners?
They're against it, yeah. They've already, so the comment period is until May 1st. So,
Nothing.
It's May 1st?
yes.
Not too much time.
No,
When, and May 1st is so close. Was this, was this sort of a stealth of the night type of thing? And then
Sure.
when was it first advertised?
this was
and all that?
self-regulations. Brian might have, I see.
You know?
Yeah, I don't want to jump on your presentation though, but yeah, I can answer your question. Early in January, I was putting together a team of engineers, Kiley Associates, Riley Associates, and what we were doing is, with our conservation district, what we were doing is trying to put together a presentation to go down and see Kelly Hefner, Deputy Secretary of the DEP. I had a date set to go see her and everything, to give a presentation and illustrate the problem with Chapter 102 buffer zones. One of the things that we see in Wayne County is the fact that our industry, our development, our commercial development, happened because there was a canal that ran through Wayne County. So commercial development and industry was located in very close proximity to that canal. Then the railroad came through. The railroad rides the edge of the river because of the natural contour of the ground. Industry and development was also focused around the railroad. Now we get Chapter 102 regulations that say you can't develop around the creeks, streams, waterways, intermittent creeks and streams, and you have to have buffer zones of 150 feet on both sides. A lot of businesses are there. If those businesses are no longer there, new business will not be able to come in and set up shop if, under Chapter 102, they were going to disturb more than an acre of ground. This takes away that capability of disturbing less than an acre of ground and still setting up shop. This is a nitrate policy that has to be met if it is passed. For commercial business, the 45 milliliters or milligrams is doubled immediately. You have to have 90 credits to put a commercial business in for one EDU, one bathroom. If you want to have a male and a female bathroom, it doubles again because it doubles with. So this is craziness.
Yep.
But I'll go into that more. Go ahead, Aaron.
Is there any parameters here for like sewage treatment plants?
Well, it doesn't,
I saw this
I can-
this doesn't,
years ago.
If
well,
you don't mind.
Go
Because
ahead,
that's
Brian.
a very good question, and that came up at our last meeting. The problem with sewer treatment plants is this. It's not covered under this regulation. However, when you look at DEP and past policy and what they're currently doing, as you see water quality come up, as we do a better job making our water better, the designation of the water, and I talked to DEP about this, they're going to increase the designation. As they increase the designation, they increase the restriction and the things you can do around your water. And if you have exceptional value water, you cannot expand on a sewer system. That effluent is dumped into that river. No matter how clean it is, you cannot expand it. So, if you have a town that's hooked to a sewer system on an EV stream, you can no longer build in your town and use that sewer system because you cannot expand on it.
This is crazy stuff. This is insanity.
It's
By
been in
the
the
way,
pipe for a
Brian
couple of years.
Smith is the chairman of the Wayne County Commissioners.
I'm sure Brian has a lot more to go. I just want to hit the council with some of the ancillary impacts that we've evaluated. We feel it's really going to affect the tax base, because if you have landowners that don't know, they absolutely don't know whether they could build on their property without hiring an engineer and evaluating wetlands, streams, proximity to whatever,
We're gonna go bankrupt.
they don't know what the value of the land is. They don't know if they're ever going to be able to build on it. What's that going to do to our tax base? The tax base funds local, funds schools, it funds counties. So this is something that our planning commission is vigilant on, because we rely on local taxes to keep the town healthy. So we feel this could be detrimental to our tax base, and justifiably detrimental. If you were a landowner and couldn't build on it, wouldn't you go to the tax assessor and say, hey, knock my assessment down, and you'll get it? So it's not good for a healthy economy, healthy town. I made this, I prepared this handout, and the other concern that we have is Shahola went through various versions of zoning, and we're now revising it again. And the way we're revising it is we're looking at what the impacts of the previous zoning or the current zoning has had on how the town is built out. So we're very pragmatic, and we're doing it ourselves. We're not using a planner. We have workshops every week. It might take us a year, but we're very intimate with the process. It's a very good process. Well, all our goals could be for naught, because if we designate certain areas neighborhood commercial, work commercial, or rural development, and we can't fulfill, or the landowners can't fulfill what they want to pursue with their land, Shahola isn't going to evolve the way our leaders feel that Shahola could. So it's a big impediment to growth patterns within Shahola. I touched upon the science of this thing, and I have a little background in science, and when I want to focus in on this federal study because it really nails it. And without getting into too much detail, I think I overheard someone said rainwater had more. Well, that's true. We're gifted. We're blessed by living in an area where the water is so pure that it's almost of a drinking standard. And when the DEP wants to enforce these methods that are draconian in nature, to go further, it really defies science, because obviously what's in place is working. I mean, the proof is in the outcome, and the outcome is we have high quality water. So this study has a lot of meat in it. In summary, what Shahola would like, and I guess that's why I'm here, is we'd like the council to look at it and pass a resolution against the implementation of these new policies. It's not good for the area, it's not good for the taxpayers of the area, and it's not good for the overall development of the area. It's coming out of left field. It wasn't vetted properly. This was snuck in, stealth, and Shahola naturally is going to provide commentary against its implementation, and we would hope that the council would join in and do likewise.
Aaron, can I ask, is this done by fiat, by DEP, or does the legislature?
No, see, in Pennsylvania, it's a very stealth process, because they dovetail onto existing regulations. You have acts passed by the legislature, and then they hand it over to the DEP for implementation, and they just keep adding and adding.
One more thing I would add is, I live on a road that parallels a stream, and the amount of salt that PennDOT dumps on the road, it would negate any benefit.
That's why I asked why just the nitrates. I mean, there's other pollutants.
Nitrates.
It's the only thing they say they think
They
might
just
get.
take care of their own people.
It's an easy
It's
an easy measurement too.
Start
You can
there.
measure nitrates.
Nitrates tend to cause allergy, choke everything off.
Well, if there are no more questions, I'll turn it over to Brian. Thank you.
Aaron, real quick, are either you or Brian going to talk about it? There was a concern or something in the paper that said that if this goes through, how much additional cost it may add to site development?
Sure.
Or
Well, we'd have.
They had a $20,000 figure in one of the articles or papers, in addition to the cost already.
At the last meeting, and maybe Brian will expand on this because we both went to this meeting, one of the engineering firms who was involved in a very simple development, as well as a single lot development in a commercial area, and they analyzed what this regulation is costing them, and it was over $100,000, I think, and for the one development, and it made the one commercial development unfeasible. In other words, they own this property, they wanted to put some kind of general store, it negated that he couldn't make the credits.
So that's how much it costs just to try to get a preliminary review and agree.
And that's just to find out, I mean, you gotta have it analyzed, so engineers get, 85 to 150 an hour.
Yeah, okay.
I have a suggestion, is the Delaware Riverkeeper is a big proponent and has been pushing this for about a year. I heard about it over a year ago, that they were trying to do this, and it's been pushed by the Riverkeeper. So you may find some additional sources to,
One other thing about this is a policy, it's not a regulation. Because it's a policy, it is not subject to any legislative review. So the DEP just imposes after, they initially had a 30-day comment period. I think it was out for a couple weeks before anybody found it. And so they did extend an additional 30 days, but initially it was out there for a while. It is administrative decision by DEP, there is no legislative review.
I don't believe there's a hearing either.
No,
just written comment.
just written comments.
Just written comment.
Yeah, you know what that amounts to.
Well, they're not
For it
giving you
to-
enough time.
To apply this, there's got to be a regulation.
No?
It's not a regulation, it's a policy.
Well, maybe they use different terminology in the federal government, but policies are not applicable. Policies are for personnel, a regulation is applicable to, citizens.
That is not what they're saying on their cover sheet. It
Right.
says this is a policy, it is not a regulation.
Okay.
Policies are not subject to legislative review.
Well, it certainly seems like it's a regulation. I mean, that's what you have on the bottom of your sheet, you say DEP regulation.
Well, I call it a regulation because we have to abide by this regulation.
Yeah.
They're calling it a policy because they're amending an existing law. They use existing law and they keep amending it.
It says they're supplementing existing regulation. Nothing in these policies or procedures shall affect regulatory requirements. So it's exempt from
So then you're not allowed, you don't have to follow it then, is that what you're saying?
They are exempt. They can do what they want.
they're exempt. They can
They
do
don't-
whatever.
Regardless of the comments, they can implement this shortly after May 1st.
In the comment period, how many,
May 1st is the deadline for comment. So, I mean, this could be operative by the summer.
Can I ask you as an example, what was the 150-foot setback from a body of water? What is that?
Well, there are two setbacks. There's a riparian forest setback and a riparian setback. And they give you credit. In other words, they establish, under the new system, they establish a protection factor, if I remember right?
Right.
And based on the distance, they'll mandate, say, 250 feet from a stream, and then they'll give you a certain value for leaving that forest buffer. So every method you use, you get credits. But there's not one that gives you enough credit to overcome the 45. You have to,
What I'm referring to is, let's say if you were to go along Burn Road in Waxman Township, and between the road itself and the river, oftentimes it's not even 150 feet.
it's unbuildable. It renders it unbuildable.
Now, what about, it's unbuildable.
Unbuildable, under this standard.
So,
Where my house is, I couldn't build.
the person who bought a lot and then went to the building department and said, this is, and gives it perked and everything, but has not built, now can't build.
That's correct.
So a person like me who spent his entire life and bought his retirement lot and is planning to build, you're talking about my parcel, because
Well,
this isn't very funny.
It isn't funny.
To me.
It isn't funny. This could be
I
your
have
retirement.
680 feet on the river, and none of it's more than 150 feet deep.
And what's also scary is that
Well,
somebody having property,
Some of it's 200 and 250 feet.
Just give it to the Park
if you
Service.
already have a property and your septic system fails, the new rules apply. You may have to leave, you may have to abandon your house.
I haven't built a house yet.
If you already built it, you might, and you had a septic problem issue, causing repairs, you are now subject to the new rules.
This is draconian.
Which could have been caused by a flood.
It's confiscatory. Basically,
It's abusive, let's face it, it's just
they're
abusive.
confiscating land by proxy.
And there's no science, I mean.
No.
It's down basin, trying to preserve up basin for their.
Well, the only science is the fact that we've achieved high-quality water. I mean,
That's right.
existing design, I mean, we can't be doing it that bad, and we're being punished for it. So it's equivalent of, if you take a highway that's never had any kind of accident on it, reduce the speed limit down to 5 miles an hour. And this is basically what they're doing. There's no justification for it. So, Brian, I don't want to take up the time. Brian's gonna.
Andy, I'll give you a couple bucks for that.
I'm afraid to ask questions.
It's working. It is now, for sure.
Buy some land at home.
Take Andy's land.
All right, well, good evening. I'll get started because Jeff was going to get us out of here early. My name is Commissioner Brian Smith. I'm the chairman of the commissioners in Wayne County. We've worked very closely to answer your questions, sir, with the commissioners of Pike County. I did already show you the map, so I won't go through that. There's so much information here. I'm going to step right in. There's so much information here that just boggles your mind. But I think you're starting to see the picture. This man is actually very accurate when he says this is downstream people trying to shut down what happens upstream. First, I would like to qualify myself as someone who can at least intelligently speak on some of this. I got out of college with associates in engineering, and I was hired to work on nuclear submarines to do weapons guidance systems, over-the-horizon data link communication systems, weapons control consoles. So I have an education. I came back from Virginia and started working at Wayne Memorial Hospital as a biomed technician. I worked on heart monitors, defibrillators, neonatal care units for infants. So I'm at least intelligent enough to read and understand. Currently, I'm a dairy farmer and a county commissioner. I have a dairy farm not too far from the river, 2 miles up Calkins Creek. I camp on the Delaware River. I swim in the Delaware River. I eat the fish out of the Delaware River. I get it. Water quality counts. We all get that. As elected officials, we have to start recognizing that there's a balance that needs to be met here. We cannot let ourselves be sold out simply in the name of pure water quality. I enjoy the water. Jeff enjoys the water. I'm sure all of you do too. But our life, existence, and sustainability doesn't just depend on having clean water. When Aaron talked about the safe water levels or the safe nitrate levels in water, the standard's 10 milliliters or 10 milligrams per liter. That's safe. When the government or the DEP, the state, decides to put a safety factor on something, they build in an additional safety factor. So if they say 10 milligrams is safe, you don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about it. There's liability concerns in their safety factor, and they've structured it and manufactured it so at 10 milliliters we don't have to worry and things are safe. When the rainwater has more nitrogen, nitrates, than what they're trying to achieve, it just illustrates the unreasonable effect of this document. Now, somebody asked about the cost. I think it was Al. The cost associated with properties that will be designated as non-billable properties, like maybe this man's, is incredibly high. In a cumulative factor, back to the county, back to the school districts, back to the townships, to anybody who uses a county assessment to derive a millage and come up with the revenue they need, this is going to really bite you. Particularly the school districts, because the school districts get the lion's share of the tax that comes back in. Now, I don't know about where all you people come from, but I know in our county people don't like paying more tax. So there's one way to manage not paying more tax under existing conditions when prices around you are escalating. You need a moderate growth rate. We have worked very hard in Wayne County as commissioners for years and years to come up with a moderate growth rate. To be able to provide places where people can build houses, to extend your tax base. Provide an environment where industry can come in and start a business. Provide jobs, expand your tax base. Moderate growth. The latest numbers out of the census show that now Wayne County is beginning to lose population. This is very dangerous if you're concerned at all about taxes. We cannot continue down this path. We cannot continue down a path of escalating our water quality to the point where they escalate the designations to the point where we can't exist. This is all we're saying. Let's be reasonable. As elected officials, we have to stop agreeing to things that don't make sense. We have to begin to read documents. Like I was saying, I got these engineers together. Kylie and Riley, we were going down to talk to Kelly Hefner. They came in and said, Brian, if you think 102 is bad, read this. This is devastating. Think they're dreaming up things they've never used anywhere before. Permeable reactive barriers, where you dig down in your property below your septic system to 1 foot above the low water level and fill it with sawdust. And then you have to sign a covenant, so it's on your deed, registered in the courthouse, that you will maintain it and that you will not use that property for anything else until there is no longer a sewer system on that property.
Oh, Jesus.
A riparian buffer. And a forested riparian buffer. If you need these to come up with the points to be able to build. Again, you have to sign a covenant. Have them delineated on your deed by a surveyor. And registered in the courthouse for the rest of the time that property has a septic system on it. Does this cost money? This will ruin us. This will ruin Wayne County. This will ruin it for our children. Do I get mad about this?
Is this
Hell
being
yeah.
implemented anywhere else in the state besides? I'm sure there's good quality water
There is
elsewhere in the
special
state.
protection watersheds
Right, but
in
is
all of
this
these
being
areas. I
implemented
should have
elsewhere?
showed this around.
Right, so who devised this, who engineered this plan on septics?
Here's what happened.
And is there like scientific data supporting that this is gonna work?
No.
That's it.
These are earth muffins.
Down in East Stroudsburg, there's a Pine Creek development. In this Pine Creek development, an environmental group got together and decided to challenge DEP with the way that they approved a septic system. They didn't say the septic system didn't work. They simply said, we want to challenge the way you're going about this. DEP then had this hearing with the environmental board. The environmental board ruled in favor of the environmentalists. DEP paid the lawsuit and the lawyers' fees that the environmentalists had and their own. And DEP then said, okay, we'll come up with a policy. This is the policy they came up with. DEP is now saying that, well, you know, the environmental board said we had to come up with a policy.
That's how it works.
Yeah, they use this in the EPA all the time.
They use this in the
Yeah,
EPA all the time.
This is a strategy that's.
They get their money back, and
So now
the
it's-
government pays for everything,
it's
and
being
then the
used
government
in-
agrees with them.
State of Pennsylvania, yep.
So the difference between policy and regulation is policy is easy to adopt. When we found out about it, it had a 30-day time frame. It was on display in the Pennsylvania Bulletin. The Pennsylvania Bulletin, incidentally, used to be sent to all the commissioners' offices, all the municipalities, all the townships. But guess what? We've gotten to the point where we want to save paper, make it easier, more efficient. Now it comes in the way of an email. Or it's online now. So you don't even get the email. So out of sight, out of mind. Nobody reads the Pennsylvania Bulletin. Or very few people. So they put it on display in the Pennsylvania Bulletin for 30 days. If there's no comment against it, it goes into place. Policy in DEP historically has become regulation. And if it's my
Nobody's really done a
policy,
financial assessment on the impact of this.
They don't care.
We're doing a financial
Well,
assessment, and
that's
I
what
will
I'm
get
saying,
into that.
but- Okay.
Nobody, now you made me lose my train of thought. People don't read the Pennsylvania Bulletin. So, it's passed into policy, whether it's regulation or not. They're going to go by this, which makes it effectively a regulation, and puts all these negative impacts on our area. So I don't know what Jeff expected here tonight, but I can tell you this. We in Wayne County, and Pike County, and Monroe County are writing letters to combat this, to try to get a meeting with the DEP and the governor's office so that we can talk reason. We all agree that when you have a septic system, it needs to be maintained, and there's a proper way to go about that. We all understand that. But to come up with something like this that has no science and no justification and just slip it into place so that they can say we came up with a policy is ridiculous. Again, points back toward the big environmental groups from downstream, Philadelphia and New York, again, are simply trying to shut this area down to make it a playground so that they can someday come here and go down the river. But I maintain, as a person who lived here all my life, I want my children to live here. I'm going to get emotional. All their lives.
That's right. And their kids.
And their kids. And be able to afford to do it. And be able to have a place to live and build a house and do it affordably. And we all know in our own lives, affordability in today's life is going out the window. Al has young kids that want to do things with house. I have young kids that want to build a house. And the thing of it is we cannot build an economy by shutting an economy down. This shuts us down. It can't get better. It can't grow. You can't have moderate growth. You can't keep your taxes down. This is horrible. Any questions?
What is the name of this regulation? I don't see it in this handout.
Regulation is the Sewage Facility Planning Module Review for on-lot sewage systems proposed in high-quality and exceptional value watersheds.
You'll see it on the agenda, old business, item A, that's the exact title.
They don't have an acronym.
And again, what Aaron said about these properties that we can already point our fingers at, we did a quick study in the courthouse today to give the engineers. We took average acreages and setbacks. We put a dollar value of assessment on them. We put a dollar value of effect that this would have on them. And we're coming up with incredible numbers because just the fact that 150-foot setbacks on our creeks and streams in Wayne County took 71,000 acres out of a usable arena and put it in a non-usable arena. 71,000 acres. So again, this is huge. Any help you can give us on this, I'd appreciate it. But more importantly, go back, tell your supervisors, tell your elected officials, read, understand, and don't agree to things that don't make sense. Because we cannot continue to sell ourselves purely because we have clear water. That we all agree on.
Right, the 150 setback, that's buildings. Believe me, and chapter 102, the new.
Just.
That's all streams, it doesn't.
Now, I'll tell you this. Under chapter 102, we were telling people that come into the conservation district, if you could disturb less than an acre, you could still build your home without having to have an MPDS permit, without having to have an additional $15,000 worth of engineering design done for pre-existing stormwater, for post-existing stormwater, as-builds, and all these things that are required in design work. $15,000, okay? This does away with that. Because I don't care if you want to build on the top of the Turkey Mound on the back 40 and there ain't a creek anywhere around, you still have to come up with 45 points to build your single-family dwelling. Which means If there isn't any other way you can use a permeable reactive buffer, if you can't use a forested buffer, if you can't use anything other than open ground, you need 11¼ acres at 4 points per acre to come up with the acreage that you need to put a single-family dwelling in.
What's the permeable reactive? Is that the one in
The
the?
permeable reactive area is the one you put on in the ground. There's a denitrification system that you can add to your septic system. DEP says it costs between $5,000 and $7,000. We made the phone call. The only company that's approved to do them in Wayne County, Pennsylvania, is a company that charges $9,500 for that additional work.
And then the maintenance.
And then the maintenance.
Every 2 years.
And the state and the township has to monitor. Part of this regulation is not only the townships are responsible for making sure the designs are correct, but making sure that these systems are managed and maintained. Now, what kind of burden does that place on the townships?
And again, you know, if you do need that riparian forested buffer or a buffer, you have to have that delineated by a surveyor. You have to have it recorded on your deed. You can't do anything with that property again except a walking trail. That's permitted.
Just to be sure here that I understand this, if you already have a home and you already have a septic system and you're in this area and it fails, you're toast.
Well, I can read to you very quickly what it says in here about replacement. And it's a bit of a stumbling point, but it says this. This guide applies to new individual and community on-lot septic systems installations only. Nevertheless, the policy and practices contained in this guide are recommended for replacement residential and community on-lot systems installed in high-quality, exceptional value water.
So they're gonna make you do it. Yeah, you're toast. You have a sample resolution for the,
We are working on sample resolutions. I can tell you this, that in Wayne County, Builders Association is carrying the torch here with this now. Joe Harcum was actually going to go down to Harrisburg and talk to Kelly Hefner with me. They have now created a website. If you go on the website, there's a log home, like the second picture down, you tap to the right of the log home. It comes up all about these policies. And at the very bottom, as of Monday, they will have places that you touch for bankers, landowners, homeowners, small business people with sample letters that you can download, or at least talking points that you can download, create your letter, write it, and send it in.
What's the name of that website?
It's the Wayne County Builders Association. If you Google it, it'll pop right up.
When you go get your 45 points, they mark down your land acreage. And in this covenant, you sign away your right to never subdivide any of the land that was included in this map.
oh my God.
So if you had 11.5 acres, you can never divide it.
I said we've been down on a train
Or
wreck.
if you have 4 acres that's contributing to 45 points, you can
Well,
never subdivide the 4 acres.
There's no doubt, this is a land taking, and it's a loss of freedom. Definitely a loss of freedom.
Does New York have anything comparable?
Yeah.
Let's hope.
I have to confess, I'm fairly ignorant to how New York handles this, so we're ignorant too.
We have no high quality water, so we're good.
Yeah, we had all those acid factories, so they gave up on that.
Yes, Sean.
We have better gun control.
About a year ago, sometime about a year ago, we were dealing with another issue that was a policy to take away the zoning rights for communities that's dealing with the regulating anything dealing with the gas, the natural gas industry.
Right?
Was that?
Oh,
Was that the same? Is that the same procedure that was used to enact that? Is this?
No.
That was legislative. Okay. Because that one went down. I mean, that one got challenged, but now this is a policy that possibly.
Well, we're challenging this too. Until I went to the paper and made a lot of waves, this was gonna be a 30-day
Wangle.
But DEP and the governor's office called me and said, you know, what problems do you have with this problem? So I told them, and they agreed to extend it to a 60-day comment period, which gave us till May 1st. So it's, I mean, really, when you read through this, it's an incredible amount of information to digest. And when you begin to apply it through GIS to our properties, and you begin to recognize and appreciate what this is going to do to us, it's hard to get your head around this and write a meaningful enough letter until you've spent a great deal of time digesting this. So we're just getting to that point, but yes, sir.
Is the counties, Plain Pike, Monroe, try to stop or seek any kind of court action?
We actually, I talked to some legal people about this, and the problem is nothing's been put into place, nothing has happened, there's been no property yet designated as unbuildable. Until this is adopted, and until we then identify a piece of property that, you know, Al Henry wants to build a house on, or your children, and it's rendered unusable, we can't legitimately bring a lawsuit against DEP. Once that happens, I guarantee you, there's going to be lawsuits. That has to be. And the problem here is, and I just want to say this, because we ran into this with the Delaware River Basin too. We in Wayne County are a people that did not grow up wanting to sue other people. We grew up wanting to do the right thing and wanted to be treated right, without lawsuits, without litigation, just because respect for one another, intelligence, and integrity. Now we're dealing with government agencies who are in sue and settle collusions with environmental groups, and it's hard for us to deal with that because we don't have the mindset. When DEP says, well, if you don't agree with that, you know, sue us, they did. That doesn't sit good with me at all. I expect people who sit in DEP to have an intellect level that you can reason with them. That you can sit down across the table, reason with them without getting a lawyer, without going to the Environmental Hearing Board, without sitting in front of a judge, and come up with a reasonable conclusion. And I don't think that's too much to expect. So for a government agency to expect people to sue them if they're not happy is completely wrong right out of the box, fundamentally incorrect, and I can't accept that as an explanation or a comeback at all. Any other questions?
Just one other comment, Brian. Shahola has a lot of lakefront lots. Imagine if you paid $150,000 for a lakefront lot in anticipation of building a retirement home, and then when it comes to retire, you have your engineer do an analysis and he tells you it's unbuildable. Now what kind of litigation do you get in there?
A lot.
Oh, one more thing I did want to mention, and I'm glad you said that. Our planning guy, Ed Core, told me that when he took the job as planning, Chapter 25, Title 25, Chapter 93, was 2 or 3 books. This is water quality regulations. Currently, it takes up 2 full levels of his book rack. The meeting that we had down in Earhart's, they talked about regulations to build or use your property or develop it in the year of 2000. A booklet not much thicker than this. Currently, it's this thick if you want to build a house or develop your property or have some kind of business. Literally what we have created is this decision-making material to hand somebody and have them say, I'll go somewhere else. It's that simple. And that's what we're creating. Yes, ma'am.
I think my question was about PA's, the Pennsylvania Constitution. Like Sean was saying, it seems that the state overrode the townships regarding gas drilling issues.
Home rule, you mean?
Yes, home rule, I mean. And so if that was overturned, what gives them any feeling that they can do this, which is the same thing, essentially? They're taking the rights of a town to decide what that town wants to look like. they're taking away the right of the town to actually protect its people. And as you say, develop the way it wants to develop. So is there not something in the constitution of the state that precludes doing this?
Now, the difference on that is the water is owned by the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
That's the distinction Pennsylvania has, and that's what they use throughout all this regulation. The water, once it touches the Commonwealth, is owned by the Commonwealth, and it's unchallengeable. That's,
That's the water itself, but the
That's the wa-
setbacks cannot be set by the town?
but they could use the water quality, the impairment, it's conjecture. I'll be honest with you, when I look at these methods, digging a ditch 30 foot deep, because in some places your water table is 30 feet deep, filling it with wood fiber, and assuming that wood fiber is going to convert or fix nitrates is conjecture. It's unproven technology. I did an internet search and I couldn't see anywhere where that's been used and analyzed. They've used wood chips as a percolation base in public sewer systems to convert it to mulch, but this type of technology, it's new. So here, we're being penalized on conjecture.
It's all built back there.
It's, right, exactly.
Mr. Chairman, I think we ought to do a straw tally here to see how the board feels.
We do have this coming up under old business.
Okay.
So
But there's no more questions for me. I appreciate you listening to me. I know I went on and on for a while. You can probably tell this really raises my blood pressure, but it's something that, you know, is going to be detrimental to us. So we are pushing back. We do have legislators right now, particularly one down in Monroe County, who is a representative that is coming up with legislation to correct the process. I also disagree with the process of DEP not having any accountability to any of the citizens of Pennsylvania to the point where they can simply pass policy on us without proper justification or proper science. So we are working on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
is there any additional public comment on the agenda? Thank you. Committee reports, water use and resource management.
The meeting started at 7:06 on the 19th. We had two guest speakers from DEP, or DCNR, correction, Mara and Lauren Possinger. They were talking about the grant workshops and community conservation partnership program known as P2. There's a whole bunch of information in here. I'm not going to go into all the details. There's more websites and whatever you shake a stick at. Some of the highlights, Andy Boyer had questioned if the Upper Delaware River is part of the inventory, and he was told that, yeah, it should be there. Tamara noted that his advisors, helpful partners find out where all the sources of funding are available. There's just a list of, a never-ending list of different funding sources. For more information, get a hold of the minutes. Like I said, the whole first page is nothing but websites. Application deadline for this program is July 31st, 2013, and there's an application fee of $100. Moving along, Travis had asked if the Upper Delaware might be able to use some of this to implement some of the river management plan. And Tamara said that the Upper Delaware is listed on the river registry, and as a result, could apply for funding to implement the action items. I think there's been some emails sent back and forth about the C2, P2.
For which the deadline was April 10th, and we decided against applying, we didn't have enough time.
That's right, getting that. Thanks for telling.
Oh,
That's
well,
okay. I have that
you
one highlighted
mentioned
too.
the
No,
July.
that's cool. But anyway, there was some further chit chat about this, and yes, Laurie said that they decided not to try to take advantage of this year. There's been some changes to the American Disability Act. They went over some of that stuff. Some of this stuff, it's all online applications, so it's kind of, Travis and Laura could probably tell you that's probably one of the reasons that they decided not to do it. I don't know anything about it, but just letting you know what, they were talking about DUNS numbers and SAP numbers and SAPs and whatever, so ask these guys if you want any more information about it, okay? I had basically asked if there was any examples of local funding, and Jeff had said that Damascus used some of the funding through this process to build their ball field. which is not, I think that yours was appropriately built, right? You need to do ADA.
No.
Didn't you build it too close to the water shed up there or something? No, just kidding.
Yeah, we are, because the ditch qualifies.
Oh,
But
okay,
we did plant new trees.
you're a good man. County. Also, there was $94,000 in Chehaula, township used down in Roman Park. So this funding has been used locally. Dennis and Mara suggested the council may be eligible to apply for funding under this partnership, and we talked about that. I just had a curious mind. I asked how much money was available, and the last year they funded 198 grants for $26.5 million. So there is money available. Unfortunately, I also asked Dennis about river cleanups, and I wasn't 100% positive on the answer, but I think he said other agencies might be able to use that money. Anyway, next item, we seconded, or correction, there was a motion to approve the minute meetings of February 19th, that was carried. Old business, river gauge funding, there was some concern about some river gauges on the Delaware that might have been defunded, and Don Hamilton made a report. Just the long and the short of it is believes that all the gauges that were defunded are all above the New York City reservoir, so it's not that much of a concern. Andy had asked about restoring any of those gauges, and there was no firm answer, yea or nay, on that. He was particularly interested about Cook's Falls, but we found out that the height up there, the water height gauge works, but the temperature wasn't working. So I'm not certain what the status is as far as getting the temperature back on Cook's Falls. Upper Delaware Scenic Byway meeting. Heather Jacksey, Sullivan County's new rep since Louise Aragon resigned. The owners of the Roebling Inn, Lackawaxen, had a concern and asked Lori about signage, and they have a plan to start a signage program to promote business. Andy had said that he agrees the signage is very important. Larry Richardson, in the Historic Act, tried to retrieve the historic marker that was knocked down along 97 in the town of Coshocton.
He did it all
And,
himself.
he did it all himself, so superhero Larry, good job, man. Is the sign back up?
I thought we're gonna make that public.
Well, it's in the minutes, I mean, I was actually, oh, wait a second.
Was that at midnight?
Yes.
That was an error. That may have been an error in judgment.
Okay, what I just told you, disregard.
He's not down the tree.
Anyway, thanks for taking care of that. The visitor center, they're still trying to get, I don't know if I should mention this either, since you were looking to see if we get federal funding. Is that okay to talk about?
That's
Okay, very good. Najee and Larry had both had a meeting with Congressman Chris Gibson to see what the status was of the federal funding for the Upper Delaware Scenic Byway Visitor Center, and I'm not sure what the status is, but there's a newly elected Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, and they're attempting to contact him. A question about the concern still goes on about the Pond 80 Bridge replacement. I'm not going to mention too much more about that, other than that's still underway. And Tony had chimed in and said that the byway needs a slogan, something with a little punch in it. So you guys work on that. The bridge meeting, we're not going to talk about that too much. Oh, there's a lot of bridge construction going on. If you're not aware, you try to cross the Delaware, almost every bridge you could possibly think of crossing has either a flagman, a stoplight, or something going on. And someone took a magic marker on this bridge, just want to report it out there, and it sprayed graffiti all over the deck. Thought the Park Service got that. That was basically, oh, there was one last item. We had a bit of a debate about guest speakers for the upcoming WER meetings and full council meetings, and the recommendation was that we were going to extend an invitation to, just that last name here, Stewart, to speak at the April WER. Sorry?
Marie?
I can't find her first name. Marie. Okay, Marie Stewart to speak at the April WER committee meeting, and again, Thomas Murphy to speak at the full council meeting. I'm not sure of the status of that, but Lori will probably have more information. And the meeting was adjourned at 8:41. Are there any concerns, questions, or comments? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you. The Operations Committee met on March 26, 2013. There were no February 26 minutes due to a snow cancellation. Lori reported to us that the automated system for payments is finally working. And she's not having too much problem with it anymore. She did have to revise this year's budget to reflect 5% sequestered funding. That's about $12,750. She did pass out a review sheet that shows us how the budget was modified. In preparing for the next fiscal year's budget, she thinks we should make the assumption, and I think Sean agreed, that that 5% is probably going to be, should be considered permanent cut. And there possibly could be some more coming. The visitor information map and guide brochure went to the printer on the 14th. The mock-ups look very good. The council's received about $925 in donations from 18 businesses to help offset the cost. The delivery is on April 15th. I shouldn't have said that because Sean's going to have a truck there and take 5,000 of them since the truck arrives. That's what it said. The award ceremony planning, that's come along very nicely. It is the 25th anniversary, and Joel Spore will be giving a review of the 25-year message, and things like that. Reservations are due by the 19th, for you who always forgets these things. You always forget to show up, so I'm just telling you. Thanks, Dan. The t-shirts you may have noticed.
Beautiful shirt you're wearing there, Jeff.
Thank you. They're here now. If you see Cindy, you're nice to her, she'll charge you a good price. Oh, $6.70, I'd pay 15.
Slight markup.
Slight markup. So the first party goes to the reps and alls before it goes for sale on the website, and I hope to have it for sale also at the banquet. On the proposal for the 25th anniversary 5K walk proposal, Travis updated us on what's going with that. He had a sheet which lists or itemized all the components of it and possible costs that may be there, and also ways to cut it. He did ask that the committee authorize him to be able to use $1,000, and that would be a cap. And he'll report back to us. We also gave him a number of suggestions on where we thought he might be able to find some cost efficiencies. And we have lots of other suggestions about it. It is going to be held in Equinox, so we'll go down the road, across the bridge, turn around, Mooresville, we'll come on back. It's an excellent site up there. So the meeting was adjourned by 7:21. So Larry started his meeting and he wouldn't get snappy with it.
The question,
Yes,
are all members of the council required to do that K-line, that?
they're required to run full speed.
It's a long also.
I'm bringing the snakes to make everybody move a little faster.
As well as members of the Park Service.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it won't be tomorrow. We do have an actual date, so you will be expected to be there. And I understand the Park Service people are putting together a pool as to whether he can do it or not.
I'll take bets on this.
Yeah, okay.
No problem.
The project review committee held its regular meeting on Tuesday, March 26th, and also since the February meeting has been canceled due to weather conditions, there were no minutes available. We had under discussion items, substantial conformance update. Odell reported that he's been reviewing the town of Hancock's relevant land use, local laws and ordinance for substantial conformance, and that's continuing. Odell said that he, Randy Peckham, and Carl Han of the Park Service met with Sam Rhodes, advising him of the process. Randy said he was open to the procedure, he understands what the council is doing, and offered to facilitate what he could with the town's building inspector and code enforcement officer. Project review update, natural gas news, Odell said that the New York State Assembly has voted to extend a moratorium until at least May 2015 to allow for the completion of independent health studies. The bill would require Senate and the governor's approval to take effect. Peckham reported that the Joint Landowners Coalition in New York is bringing a lawsuit against the state of New York for delays. Odell stated that the March 25th Environmental Protection Agency Advisory Board Hydraulic Fracturing Research Advisory Panel. This panel of independent experts will peer review the EPA's 2014 draft report for results for its national study on the potential health and environmental impacts of hydraulic fracturing on drinking water resources. The public will at some point have an opportunity to comment. Peckham noted that the movie Frack Nation will be shown for free at the Cinema 6 in Holmesdale on April 6th at 11:30 a.m. The movies will also be shown on Sunday, April 7th at 11:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. Hancock Compressor Station, Odell noted that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, completed the environmental assessment of the proposed site, and the public comment period deadline is April 1st. Town of Lumberland, Odell reported that on March 13th, the town board held a public hearing to discuss a subdivision application. The application for the proposed subdivision was presented to the town prior to May of 2012, and during that month, the town amended their zoning and now requires a 5-acre minimum lot size in that particular zone. The proposed subdivision includes 6 lots on 24 acres. Because the subdivision was applied for before the passing of the zoning amendments, the town board voted to allow the subdivision to proceed. Odell stated that because the town of Lumberton is in substantial conformance, the project is not considered a Class 2 project because of its size and does not constitute a review. Town of Delaware, Odell noted that the Sullivan County Soil and Water Conservation District, in collaboration with Gore Trucking, will be removing 1,400 acres of gravel from a secondary channel at the confluence of the North Branch and Callaghan Creek in Hortonville. The work is not expected to have any significant environmental impact. Again, the state according to the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, upstream water and tributaries can fall under the act depending on what impacts they have. He said the Park Service will take a look at it. Again, in Delaware zoning, March 7th, a letter to the town of Delaware with comments and recommendations in regards to the proposed zoning amendments and the 2012 map changes was reviewed at the March planning board meeting. Most of our recommendations were incorporated. Pennsylvania DEP, Odell said that the DEP has proposed new regulations for development adjacent to special protection waters as designated by the DEP. A long discussion of the proposal followed, and Randy said staff will contact the Pennsylvania DEP to find out the content deadline and then remember townships to ask for the positions. TAG update, Odell reported that mid-term progress reports were received from all recipients except for Damascus Township. Training update, Odell reported that he's been participating in the Climate Solutions University Model Forest Policy Program as part of a team from the Common Waters Partnership. The program functions as a support group that helps the watershed reach identified goals that would help plan for a community that is more climate change resilient. On March 1st, he had planned to attend a municipal planning workshop in Delaware, New York. He also said that he recently enrolled in a free IMAP invasive training session with the CRISP partners on Wednesday, April 3rd in Arkville. The training provides a mapping tool for detailed information about infestation, surveys, and treatment of invasive species. New business, Odell noted that he has condensed 3 forms from the project review workbook into 1 draft form that was provided in the members' package. The intention is to provide this form to code enforcement officers and planning boards to fill out in order to inform Odell about the projects that are going on in their towns and townships in the river corridor, and this is an evolving document. Approval for the Pike County's completed TAG grant. Odell said Pike County has completed their project, the reprinting of the greetings from Pike County brochure. He said they request payment of $500 that was awarded. Motion to send request of payment to the Operations Committee was made by Rush, seconded by Conley and Perry.
Draft letter to PERC. Following a lengthy discussion about the project and the timelines of comment, it was agreed that the staff would create a letter to PERC pointing out the proximity to the river corridor, and that the letter would be sent over the project review committee chairman's signatures. Peckham disagreed with that. McGinnis said that at the last full council meeting, discussion took place about the open space plan. He said that the upper Delaware is a great place for some of these designations. He feels that it's a great opportunity to tell New York that the upper Delaware should be considered for some of these access points for conservation. The workbook was put off again. Public comment, Victoria Lesser from North Branch said she attended tonight's meeting as she had been alerted about the letter to FERC. She expressed her feelings about fracking. Lady Carolyn Duke of Roscoe said her concern is with the compressor station. Fritz Mayer reported that May 15th is the date for the closing comments on the issue of the septic system in Pennsylvania, and we adjourned at 9:05.
Just a note on that, that Hancock had their town meeting and all the necessary permits from the DEC have been approved for the compressor station. So.
Also, Fritz's information was incorrect. The comment deadline is May 1st. He did say the 15th, but it is May 1st. Checked.
Move to the status reports. We have Bob Cooter here from Delaware River Basin Commission.
Good evening, I'm the Deputy Director. I know some of you, but a lot of new faces here, so I realize it must be a year since I've been here. Given the agenda you have today, the busy agenda, I'll just highlight a few things. I guess we typically do this little hydrologic report. Yep. And we're right about on the mark where we are with the historic deviance in terms of the storage in the 3 New York City reservoirs. They're at 90% full. And under this flexible flow management program, that's where we want them in order to meet these multiple objectives. The one thing we are looking for is not really an upper basin issue, it's a lower basin issue. We pay attention to the salt line. If you drive down to Washington, you go over the Delaware Memorial Bridge, that's where the salt line is supposed to be right now, but it's about 5 miles up the river due to low flows. And we worry about that because it could compromise big drinking water intakes in the city of Philadelphia, South Jersey, and things like that. But it's nothing to be too concerned, just that we're watching it right now. One of the things that I asked Cindy to put in your package that relates to hydrological report is a little graphic, and it really is just showing the stream gauges in the basin. And you know, we're pretty low stream flows right now. Like if you go out in the river, that could be self-apparent, but it really spans the whole basin. And if you look over a historic stream flow record of maybe 80 years, compared to what the normal is, we're about 10% percentile or 10 to 25% percentile, depending on the color there. The yellow is 10 to 25, and the kind of orangey red is less than 10%. So that is something significant. Last year at this time, we had the historic low flows based on this 80-year record, and that's when we started to see that Dynamo problem. The Dynamo was the aquatic algae at the diatom. And I think it's always been in the system, but nobody knew it was there because it was in such small populations. And there was just a major bloom. We don't know why. They're still trying to understand the biology of it. And it was able to extend its range all the way down to Trenton, with different forms in different sections of the river based on the water chemistry. So like our biologist at DRBC is working with the National Park Service biologist, Don Hamilton, to really monitor this time of year, April, May, to see what's going to happen this year. I doubt anything big is going to happen, but when you get these flows this low, and that's what occurred last year, we don't know. So that's just something of interest. So I put a little blurb in the package about Dynamo, in case anybody's interested. It has that really affectionate name of rock snot. I put one other little thing in the package is DRBC's trying to move in the modern internet-based era, so we've got our own little social media stuff now. And so we try to send out little alerts, like everybody does Twitter, I don't know, little tweets about topical issues of the day. And it would be things like about Dynamo or some of the things like baseball mud and stuff like that for this time of year. But it gives you a web address if you wanna follow that and get some updates about the river from a DRBC perspective. Last thing, probably you don't pay too much attention to DRBC trials and tribulations, but we are starting to have public meetings that get 150, 200, 300 people come to the meeting. Mostly based on concern about natural gas regulations, whether we will ever be them or not. What we are doing right now is we make decisions based on our existing rules, because our natural gas rule proposal is on hold. And you see all these pipeline proposals coming across the basin. And so we're aware of about 15 of them on that basin. And the last meeting we had in March, we decided to go to a 2-day format rather than a 1-day format. And the reason was we wanted to have a public hearing on day 1 and give the commissioners time to digest all the public testimony they have before they would vote on any actions. And that really didn't work too well, because on day 2, the different objectors, I guess if you would call them, kind of took over the meeting. We lost control of the meeting, and we couldn't conduct our business until the very end, amongst songs and yelling and screaming. So in the future, we're probably going to have to change our modus operandi even further with more security and policemen and all that kind of stuff, which is too bad. But we're going through some, I guess, contentious times with contentious issues, even some of the ones you brought up here tonight, and we'll see how that all plays out.
Has the commission moved any on the regulations? What is the status?
We're dead in the water, I guess is the way I put it. There is what the people call a moratorium. There was a rule proposal, there was no move to ever adopt those rules. My sense is that the commissioners want to kind of wait to see what happens in New York, in terms of the public health and all of that. Yes, right. So I don't know. But I don't anticipate that dynamic will change in the near future in terms of DRBC moving out ahead of one of the states. And that's where we are with that. I did put in, Cindy, I gave something, she said she'll put it in the minutes. We are doing some things related to natural gas. One is, we're doing a lot of baseline monitoring, and this is where you have this hiatus that we can really characterize what all our streams are in terms of different analytes that are related to produced water out of a gas well. And so we will be able to do a lot of detective work if and when natural gas development happens, to be able to make sure that the industry is accountable, and we'll be able to tell cause and effect and all of those sorts of things. And so it's things like chlorides, total dissolved solids, people mentioned salts. It's things like metals, things like radionuclides, and the biology of the stream, the critters. If the critters were to change in some way, we'll be able to tell what normal was relative to something that's a changed condition. The other thing we're doing is we got a grant for a fairly substantial amount of money from the We of Penn Foundation to the tune of about $650,000 to build. I mean, somewhere in the minutes, there was a discussion about a mapping tool. This would be a mapping / decision support tool that would allow us, for this part of the basin actually, to be able to use aerial photography, LiDAR mapping, very detailed information about small watersheds, they call them small hydrologic unit codes, to be able to interact with the natural gas industry at a lease area scale. So that if you were looking not just at a well pad or a well pad by well pad, you'd be looking at a collection of well pads, roads, pipes, compressor stations, and to see ways collectively that we could make sure that development went forward, but in the most environmentally sensitive way possible. And so that tool would allow us to interact not only with the applicant, but let third parties, UBC, other people, Park Service, interact in the process to see how that might unfold in this space. So that's something that should be done in the next 6 months. and whoever succeeds me as the representative of DRPC could keep you up to date on that and tell you in much more detail about that if you wanted to know.
Where is the monitoring, this baseline monitoring taking place? Where are you doing it?
We're doing it in both New York and Pennsylvania.
Are you
In the
up
area.
in northern parts of
Yes,
the?
yes.
Woodland
Yeah.
Creek has a monitoring station in it.
I can pass
But
around.
For this purpose?
Let me just see here.
Is that three of the songs that,
We're putting in the
guys-
hobo songs, yeah.
What is
But-
that?
But it's a kind of a little, telemetry sensor that can detect conductivity. One of the big things that changes as a function of this produced water finding its way into surface water stream is the saltiness of the water. And the chlorides, and all of these ions, not just chlorides.
Measures it.
Yeah, yeah. So, I have an example of what these meters look like and where, and how they're deployed and where they're located, and why they're located in this little PowerPoint. That's really in a YouTube format. It's where somebody's talking at you and walking you through sort of a PowerPoint with 20, 30 things. So that will be available for you all to look at, just so you know where we're sampling and what we're finding. And but it was too much for this meeting right now.
Well, I think we've gone through some of that. I
Have you?
think we had a presentation when the DRBC was here, they went over that whole thing, diagrams, PowerPoint
Oh, did
presentation,
they?
okay.
over at, across the street.
And then we put
It's quite a while.
we have 6 of them in right now. 3 of them we have in all winter, and now 2 of them are attached to the bridges. One is upstream in Lackawaxen, and one is on the Lordville Bridge. And those are gonna be continuous satellite link to the USGS website. So we're already doing that. They're gonna add 3 more. And they're probably, you guys are gonna be upstream in some of the, in the east and west. or
Trips.
some- yeah.
Well, I'll comment, it's not a scientific comment, but talking about the water storage, I had a local farmer express concern to me already that he feels that it's dry.
The river itself, the
In
flow?
Sullivan County, he's
Yeah,
dry,
yeah.
he's concerned.
No, it is. When you say,
I haven't looked at that around here,
Yeah,
it looks
no,
normal.
when you say 10 percentile
Yeah.
compared to the long-term average, and that's low.
Question. The westerly boundary of this map is kind of irregular. Is this map intended to designate the basin?
No, this is much bigger than a basin.
Why is that the line, so how is that selected there on that map? Such an odd thing.
I think the USGS works with NOAA, National Weather Service, and some of their river forecasting stuff. So this encompasses both the Susquehanna and the Delaware River Basin.
And more.
Yeah, and goes further up into New York. Yeah,
Okay.
okay?
So, I would love,
So it's a USGS product.
could we get a map of the river basin itself?
Yeah, you can get that real time on your computer,
On your computer,
showing all of these
USGS.
stations. But this particular application, I might have to send it to Cindy to show you where it is. But we could do it with the same information?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be
Well,
great.
Okay.
I'll tell you why I asked. I'm very impressed. Gathering baseline data to understand what's happening from any cause is really important and valuable.
Sure.
But if we're doing 6 here and 3 here, and I'm seeing in what I surmise to be the DRBC, the Delaware River Basin, and all these dots represent tributary streams, doing 3 or 6 is not a very big piece of the problem of getting, there are lots of tributaries is my point.
Oh, no.
Well,
I don't-
just main rivers.
I don't know if I said something 3 or 6 that led you down the wrong path, but we're sampling like 100 different stations.
Okay. And is there any particular, is it random, or is it is there a specific focus at this particular time?
The focus was based on where we think, based on USGS information from the oil and gas industry, where the yield will be. And so there are maps here showing sort of where we think the highest potential is for wells to have strong yields. And then we would go into small headwater watersheds and begin to sample those. And so we have a map that shows what that potential yield is. I don't know if it's accurate or not, we don't have the data, but that's what we get from these expert agencies at the federal level. And then secondly, we have a map showing where we're sampling. And I can leave this here, but it's available electronically that any of you could look at. In fact, we can send that out right away.
One other question, with these, the series of pipeline applications or pipeline expansions, I'm not sure what they are. Does the applicant show the terminus of those pipelines? Where are they all headed?
New York City.
They're all headed to New York City.
Can only ship them in 32-liter bottles.
Well, New York City has,
I have a question, why are there so
Mandates.
many applications when you would say, okay, there is existing right-of-way and the sensible place to put it is existing right-of-way and expand an existing pipeline? Why are there like 15 different applications from different people to do this?
Well,
I mean,
guess
is it just a moneymaker for people?
Oh, I think it's gonna be a huge moneymaker, and they talk about trillions of cubic feet of gas, and as this has progressed since 2008, every year they say there's more than they thought there was the last year. And so, and then they say originally it was the Marcellus Shale, then the Utica Shale, then another shale formation under that. So this is just kind of, I guess, the wave of the future for this region. But you've got all these different companies competing in terms of these transcontinental pipelines. And some, I say New York, but there are some in the southern part of the basin that are going to South Jersey and that area. And then what I'm hearing is that really, there's the grand plan is to export this stuff to other countries. And so
Well,
they're
that was
talking,
my question, if
they're gonna put in LNG plants.
Isn't one,
liquefy.
one of the slogans, of course, American gas for Americans, but if these pipelines are all going, they're not going to harbors or to.
They're starting to do that.
Oh, so in other words, it's not necessarily going to Americans?
The ultimate destination, once you, well, to make it, well, the economics aren't real good right now. It's cheap to get gas, which is good for Americans, but I think the idea is if you start selling it offshore, there's more of a market, and then,
it's all
supply and
regulated,
demand.
the government has to approve exports.
So-
It's only one's been approved right now. That's down in Louisiana. They're talking about Cove Point now.
But there's proposals in the Chesapeake system to have an LNG facility. There's
That's Cove
proposals.
Point.
There's one in Delaware right now that they're proposing.
Philly, yeah.
Yeah, and then another one for some of those decommissioned refineries. They're thinking about
I was
turning
just
them
trying to
around.
reconcile in my own mind the American gas for Americans and the exportation of all this gas. I can't quite figure it out.
It's for Americans plus. I think the ultimate plan is to export.
Could I ask you one other question? Is there any regulation at all on the number of pipelines? Or is it just like build a pipeline and they will come and we'll collect the money and we'll go through the environment and,
Right now, it's the latter.
that's how it goes?
It's the latter.
The ladder.
You wanna limit how many pipelines?
Because if one pipeline could serve the purpose, why have four?
You have to have feeders to feed them.
I will say that most of them are being proposed where there are already pipelines and there are already easements and that they would put in.
Existing right-of-way.
Existing right of way.
Yeah, I could understand that. I could totally understand.
But it is a real proliferation of pipeline proposals right now.
But you need feeder lines to feed trunk lines.
Yes, the gathering lines.
There's 1,000 gas wells in Pennsylvania aren't even hooked up to pipelines.
But what people are reacting to is not so much the gathering lines, it's the big ones that go in.
You need a trunk line
Yeah,
to
yeah.
take the gathering, I mean.
Well, New York City is changing, excuse me, they're the ones that, New York City's gonna be using gas, they're converting to natural gas.
New York City made a deal with
a tremendous amount of
Chesapeake,
natural gas.
$800
Sure.
Somehow it's gotta
million
get to
people per year.
Sort of all North Jersey too, I mean, it's
That's
not just
right.
one state.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got the Algonquin,
I said short. I'd lied.
Dennis is getting, New York State's not here, but they did send us 2 press releases. I realize in Hancock it may still be wet, but it's dry down here. And I know my township was already having fire problems. Your trucks were out yesterday. So, just a reminder, especially on New York State side, you're not allowed to burn brush for a while. It is dry out there, so everyone needs to be careful. And the New York DEC is accepting applications for their 10th anniversary Environmental Excellence Awards and quite a variety of categories. So, if you know someone, try to put that nomination in. We don't always get to see Dennis, he's been here twice in like 2 weeks, so it's a pleasure.
I just have a few announcements of items in front of you, programs that are coming up. I know some of these may be a little bit of a distance away, but there's one at Nescopec State Park coming up April 17th on native tree plantings to improve water quality. And you actually get to take home a 2 to 3 foot tree and a tree shelter. Also in Luzerne County, we're having a sustainable landscape bus tour. We've had conducted these successfully in the Lehigh Valley, and we're doing one in conjunction with Penn State Cooperative Services. And there's nothing like actually, we can go to meetings, we can view PowerPoints, but when you get on a bus and you actually go and visit these sites that have been improved and you get to see the plant material and the things they've done, it's a tremendous educational tool. So that's happening on May 31st. And we know, I think spring is here. So I brought some recreational guides and highway maps for the Pennsylvania Park and Forest and the welcome map.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Just a couple of things, don't take too much time, but, let's see, as I mentioned before, we do have a date now for this foundation planning, foundation dock planning that we're gonna do, that goes back and looks at, basically, it's more for us, it's the Park Service and how we work in the valley, but it's gonna look at who we are, why we're here, and where we're going in the future. So it's a workshop, we're gonna have about 25 people there, and I'm gonna get invitations out, so we got some of our partners there, and the invitation can go out to the Upper Council. So, see if anybody wants, 3-day workshop, 2 days is really necessary, the last day doesn't have to be there. I'd like to invite, Travis and Lori and, Jeff, if you can make it, but that's, anybody else that's interested, the invitation's open. That's gonna be April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. Again, what we do is we go look at the enabling legislation and start from there. What it says we're supposed to be doing and what we're doing, and then we talk about, we review the interpretive themes about what the values and what this place is about, what we're supposed to be doing, what our mandate is, and making sure that, and then it's taking us into the next 15 years or so. This replaces the old general manager planning process, because at the end of the workshop, then they'll write up a draft plan, and everybody can get to, you all get to review that, the draft plan, and it'll just kind of spell out the direction we want to go into the future of what we're doing here in the valley. It's it's a little bit different than what the river management plan says. River management plan is more how the river and the valley is going to be managed. This is more how the Park Service is going to manage ourselves in implementing this and implementing their programs they're responsible for. So it's a great opportunity to be one of the first parks. All the parks are going to have it done by the year 2016, the 100th anniversary of the Park Service, to really look at moving into the next century for managing parks. So I put my hand up and see if we could get that done here, and so we could look at some of the issues and get an opportunity to look at some of the things. We've been struggling, as all you know, you're part of this, we've been struggling with a visitor center, places for visitor contact, access to the river, all these kinds of things we've been struggling with. And every time, you all get a new superintendent, that person goes, we're not doing that. So
it takes a couple of years to break on that.
Yeah. So
I'm still working on you.
It's an opportunity to really get more of a review of where we're going and have it kind of in writing of where the park should be going in the next So, it's funded from our Washington Planning Office. So we got some folks coming from Denver and a couple people from the regional office that will facilitate it for us. So it's a very involved process. So I'd like to, if anybody's interested, to join us on those 2 days in the month.
Where is it being held?
Carla is figuring that out now. We're looking at possibly carriage, or the house, or the beach.
Parents' house?
No.
Central House.
Central House. Yeah, or maybe across the street here. We're looking, Carla's on that right now. She's got some phone calls in. Also, we did, as was mentioned in the notes, I did get in touch with Jill Weiner from Sullivan County, who's acting in place of the commissioner.
Wire.
Wire?
Yeah, not Wiener.
I didn't say Weiner, I said Weiner. But I still have it
Not to
wrong.
be confused with.
I still have it wrong. How do you pronounce it, Weiner?
Wire.
Wire, okay, there's no Weiner. Anyways, about the open space plan that Bill Rice mentioned to us at the last meeting. And so she sent me a copy of what they're looking at, and we had been included, mostly because of Heather Jackson's involvement with the local waterfront revitalization planning process and meeting with the different communities, and getting a bigger picture of the valley. So they do have they do have us mentioned in the plan that's gonna be forwarded down to Albany. So I made some comments to just make sure that that we want to emphasize Upper Delaware as separate from Hudson, and we do have needs here, some access areas, and some other opportunities for conservation easement, possibly scenic easements on private property, and if there's funding available to get that funding for opportunities for anybody in the valley who would like to participate in a program like that. So the chances of us getting anything out of New York State are so slim that it was just good to try and emphasize, some things just in case we hit the jackpot and try and get them to see, and traditionally they've gone Hudson Valley and kind of ignored all of us up here, so I got some comments in, not much, but they've already included us. And then, just to let you know, we've got 3 of our interpretive seasonals here that are right now currently working on education programs. This is the time of year where we meet. We contact about 1,200 students in all the schools up and down from Port Jervis up to Hancock. So then, of course, Jamie and DRBC and stuff, we work on the Water Snapshot program. The Canal Days is going to be on at the end of the month, and Bridging the Watershed, which Jamie is also working on. So these are great programs that we meet with kids, take them to the river and show them, how to measure water quality, talk about the natural resources and so. But the rangers are starting to work that out. The maintenance guys are starting to clean up the accesses. Of course, 10 Mile River is always a big bear, but they're starting to work on all that now. So if anybody sees anything, need anything, give me a call. We've got, we have a new facility manager now, Lauren Goring, so we have kind of a new opportunity to look at how we manage our facilities. So, and then lastly is, in your package, is the 2013 work plan that I told you I would include at the last meeting. Now, this work plan basically is a list of the kinds of things that we're doing, that each program is doing above and beyond the day-to-day work. So when you're looking at this, it doesn't include our normal stuff that we do every day, like answer the phone, go to conferences and meet with people. It's really project stuff that we're working on. So you see there's a long list of stuff, and I just want to say that the work that Don's doing in resource management, natural resources, with all these grants he's got from the USGS and DRBC, Nature Conservancy. So we're doing a lot of stuff that Don and Jane and our term position Jessica are doing. So get a chance to look at this, and any questions you have, ask, because the River Management Plan does say that I'm supposed to submit to you a plan that we're going to do in 2013. It mostly refers to managing recreation on the river, but because we've evolved more into just more than recreation, I just want to see the kind of work that we're going to do. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Lord.
Well, we have had some exciting developments lately, this shirt being one of them. If you're our male model, can you show the back? Whatever you want to do. You can dance around a little. Shall we have- Well, that map was illustrated for us by Jamie Myers from the Park Service, so we thank her for that. And this is the first time the UDC ever had a t-shirt, which we are using both for promotional purposes as well as a fundraiser. So it's an easy way to express your support for the cause here. As mentioned, we will give first dibs to our representatives and alternates. We have 8 dozen that we ordered initially in various sizes. And then we'll save the rest of them for sale at our awards banquet. And then we'll see how many we have left, whether we need to order some more and then offer them for sale to the public. We'll do a press release and post the image on our website. And as mentioned, it's a $15 donation. So if anybody's interested, see Miss Cindy, who will take your money. Yeah. Secondly, we did have the delivery of our spring-summer issue of our newsletter. The printer was 2 days late to our contract, and then the postal service was 2 days late for getting it in the mail. It was delivered to them very early Wednesday morning, but we were $34.96 short in our postage account because of the increase in postal rates since we did this 6 months ago. So they held it hostage until I drove up there this morning with a personal check for $34.96, and then they put them in the mail.
That's funny.
So
They're worried about $34.
I thought they would just
$8
trust
billion
us,
is
but
more.
apparently that's policy. So we do have extra copies of this here in the office because you probably won't get it for the bulk mailing until a week or two. So if anyone's really anxious to read it, we can get you some. And you're also always welcome to take a supply if you have a distribution point for them. That has obviously a lot of relevant issues that we've been talking about here. It just, out of curiosity, it goes to 9,417 mailboxes.
Wow.
And then we order 10,000 so that we have a bit of a surplus for the future. It was mentioned about our visitor information map and guide brochures. The proof that we received did look beautiful, so we're very excited about that. We have changed everything in it. So it's essentially a new cover, new map. When we get those, which delivery is expected on approximately April 15th from Courier Printing, we will start the distribution right away. And as was mentioned last month, I had said we raised $900, and then we got one more check-in, so it was $925 from local businesses that have listings under our various tourism-related business categories. But we list everyone regardless of donation or not. That's just a courtesy that the businesses do to express their support for this promotional effort on our behalf. So we will be acknowledging those donors in a press release when I put one out to announce the availability of the brochure, and it's also listed in this newsletter. The awards banquet is coming along. We have that coming up on April 28th, which is Sunday, at the Lackawaxen Inn. We announced the honorees on March 25th, and you have a copy in your packets of the press release noting who the honorees are. The itinerary has been set and the invitations have been issued. You also have that in your packet, and even if you think we know you're coming, please fill out that form anyway, just so we can account for you with our guest count to the restaurant. And reservations are due by April 19th, $27. And we do have some special programs planned to commemorate the 25th anniversary. We have quite a few special touches for you this year. And hopefully you can all attend, given that it's our milestone anniversary. As was mentioned, we have decided to proceed with our Strides Across the Delaware 5K Run Walk. The date for that is September 28th, and that is in Equinunk, Lordville. We're partnering with the Equinunk Watershed Alliance to do a lot of our logistical planning with us as, you know, local people on the ground there. And they will also have food available for following the run walk. We're going to have our first formal planning meeting on Friday, April 12th at 11 a.m. here in the office. And we do welcome input and participation. I know it's tough to get away during the day, but obviously that's when we were here. And we're going to need a lot of assistance to pull this off, more than just the three of us, because there's a lot to do with the logistics, permitting, solicitations for sponsors, getting goods and services from businesses, publicity, commemorative t-shirts. We'll have a different t-shirt with the date of the event on it, traffic control, and then on the day of the event itself, we're going to need a lot of hands there to help us splash water on people or whatever you do at these run walks. So that day in particular, we'll be looking for assistance, but also for participation. You can walk too. I'll be walking, he'll be running, for example. You'll probably run, so.
I'll sit on a bridge with a chair.
That's okay, yeah, we'll take anything you can do. But if you do have something to contribute to that event, even if you're not able to serve on a committee or attend that meeting, please let Travis know what you can offer us for assistance. And it's all of our event, remember, again, for the 25th anniversary. This is celebrating the land component of our land and water people, in addition to our raft trip coming up on, whatever you interpret it. And that's, our raft trip is coming up August 4th, and the registration form for that is also in this newsletter. Lastly, I'll mention federal funding. We did receive modification number 12 to our cooperative agreement with the Park Service, which in this case covers the fact that the continuing resolution was passed for the federal government to continue operating through the end of the fiscal year. And what this does for us is free up that 52% balance of our funding that had been held back while awaiting the decision on that. And this also takes into account the 5% federal sequester cut. When we did revise the budget on March 26th, we needed to submit that to the Park Service to show where we were taking that $12,750 from. And the modification basically means that within a couple days, now that today I received the signed modification back from the Park Service, that money will be added to our account, which we can then draw down. So that was good news, because we were about $50,000 toward the end of that, and obviously we have more of the year to go. I said lastly, but I didn't mean it, because I just wanted to point out that you do have the April calendar of events and everything we have coming up there in your packets, which you can feel free to ask us about anything that you're interested in. Beyond April, I did want to mention a few of these presentations that we've invited or had, requested of us to give. The letter that we sent on March 20th to Marie Stewart, who is the Deputy Delaware River Master, she has not gotten back to us yet with a confirmation as to her availability. We asked her to come to a WERM meeting in April or in May, and I wrote the letter and then I followed up with an email just yesterday, but we didn't go back yet, so I can't confirm that one. We do have a presentation that has been arranged by Carla on behalf of Park Service in advance of next month's full council meeting on May 2nd, and that will consist of the Lackawanna College they have students that undertook a project to look at our land and water use guidelines and apply them 50 years in the future to sustainability issues. This is an exercise they're doing for some sort of credit, I understand. We're kind of foggy on the details because Carla's been handling it single-handedly, it seems, and we have just learned that much about it. But on May 2nd, these students who are adult learners for the most part would like to come in and tell you what they found out or ask questions. I'm not sure, but there's some sort of presentation on May 2nd. And unfortunately, that's as much as I know about it at that point. Then at the June full council meeting on June 6th, Thomas Murphy, who is the chief of the New York City Department of Environmental Protection's Bureau of Water Supply / Reservoir Releases Policy Development person, has confirmed that he can attend that meeting. We had invited him for May, but he wasn't able to do it until June. So he's going to talk to us about how the whole system works of the Delaware River Basin reservoirs and also the Cannonsville hydroelectric plant, he's
Is this at the
sending
regular
talks
meeting or
about
is this a committee meeting?
full council meeting on June 6th. That was the decision that word had reached about, thinking that that topic was of enough interest to everyone that a bigger audience would be appropriate. And also, we always announce in our meeting notices these presentations coming up because of course our meetings are open to the public and we would encourage audiences for all of those. That's all that I have.
Lori, a question? Where was that May 2nd or 4th meeting going to be held?
Here. Unless the students need more room, that's why I was saying we haven't really met with Carla to discuss
Is there a
what's
time?
involved, I just found out about it.
Time?
Our usual 7 o'clock meeting,
Oh, it's a good
Bill.
meeting.
It's full council meeting.
May 2nd,
May 2nd.
And when would the DEP, New York City?
June 6th.
Okay. Don't want to miss that one.
No.
No?
I noted,
Got a few questions, Fred?
apostrophe Dell probation expires
He does.
on May 9th.
He expires.
Is that what gets his official name tag?
It is.
40 lashings.
You're going to have to,
paper one just to keep.
you're going to have to run faster than that.
You can't.
He's got to endure the paper cut or two.
Okay. You just failed your probation, young man. Back talking to seniors.
You're not on the committee.
Excuse me.
Old business. We did have a couple presenters today. If you haven't heard enough, I could go on for probably another 2 hours about this whole mess. But, you know, we realized that when the presenters came in, that this is not a traditional subject matter before the UDC, but this is something that is very vital to the Pennsylvania Council. So, I can speak for the rest of them saying we appreciate any help we can get on this.
I'd like to make a motion that we write a letter in support of Shaula or any other Pennsylvania towns that are on board with that. 'Cause I think it's a killer.
I would second that, only though I would modify it to say that we are against the DEP, is it DEP?
Yes.
The DEP is not a regulation, but a policy,
Policy changes.
you know, that we heard about.
I know that Michael Watson obviously is on the same page as they said.
May I suggest that we reach out to the Wayne Builders Association, and they're doing some draft letters for both political people and maybe agencies, and then maybe we should craft one and circulate it for suggestions, comments, or tweaks from our membership before it goes out.
We don't have a whole lot of time.
We don't, no, we don't have a lot of time, that's the point, and we won't have another meeting between now and May 1st, so it really needs to be prior.
It's gonna have to go through a committee.
Hmm?
It's gonna have to go through committee.
How?
The
May
project
1st.
review
We still have
committee
project
has
review
authority to issue
at
comment
the end of the
letters on
month.
time-sensitive matters.
Whoa,
So the next
whoa, whoa, no.
opportunity.
You just made a motion to send a letter, it was seconded.
To write a letter, not send a letter, to write a letter
Oh.
in response.
Now,
April 23rd.
And that would be done through the appropriate committee.
He would write the letter by the time it got project review, then the letter would be ready. Pre-project review. That's why I'm doing it now,
Right.
so we can prepare the letter, so
I
everybody
think
knows.
Andy makes a valid point, though, we should find a template here that is appropriate.
Well, that's up to,
Yeah, well, whoever it's up to.
that's up to Travis. I
Let's
mean.
not try to reinvent the.
Well, we still gotta give him authority to do it. That's what I'm doing.
It's out of our character, though, to vote to approve a letter that we have not yet been crafted.
My motion is to write a letter to be reviewed by the project review committee, or the council, whatever you wanna call it.
Authorize Travis to draft.
I personally don't like any letters going out from committees, so.
That, I don't see this proposal doesn't make sense to me. I would wanna see approve that a letter be sent, that it be drafted, and that we use the template that was suggested by Brian, and and not everybody's a member of the project, review committee, sent to the entire council, and if we have a majority that, that we come up with a draft, we have to send it because we don't meet again. So I would amend Friend's motion to send the letter, but it should be duly vetted by the entire council.
Andy, we meet on project review, it's about a week before the letter has to go out.
Yeah, but
I know, but Travis
but
can-
what you're saying is really not proper, because what you're
No,
doing
what I'm
is you're taking the voice of the council and you're handing off what is gonna be
That's
said.
not what I'm saying. I'm suggesting that Travis write the letter according to the template.
Yeah.
We discuss it at project review, but then it gets disseminated to all of the members of the council.
Either way.
But we can discuss it at project review, and that's a week before. The May 1st, is it deadline? May 1st? Yeah, so that's a whole week, but we should discuss it at project review, which is where we discuss.
I believe it
Right.
can be, the letter can be filed electronically.
But still, I understand what Andy's saying, the rest of the council members would like to read it also.
I'd like the draft to get out as early as we can. I think it's really important. Probably no other person has as much at stake in this, very few people, because I have my retirement home property that I bought over a decade ago.
Amazing how that works, isn't it? It's amazing how that works when your ass is on the line.
And I fully had it engineered and met all the requirements. And now if I'm hearing Aaron correctly and understanding that this dream I've had is now going to be crashed, I want to make sure we get a letter out. All right, Fred?
No, never mind. This is crazy. It's good to see someone else in a position I've been in.
As a chairman of that committee, I think that that letter should come out of the committee. I think it should be circulated prior to that committee. Try to get some feedback then, so we can consolidate some of those concerns, come up with a finished letter that will go out from committee. And let the minutes please note that this gentleman has property in Pennsylvania.
Got a vested interest.
I can't vote on it because I
Conflict of interest.
have a
Larry, was
conflict
that a
of interest.
motion?
We're all in the same boat.
Was that a motion or recommendation? Time is running.
I'll make it a motion, I don't know that.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, and it has been seconded, as I understand it. We are asking the staff to prepare a letter possibly based on a model which will be available as of sometime Monday. It will go to project review for comment and direction, and then we will try to circulate it.
It'll be circulated prior
to, okay, it will be circulated so a comment can be directed to the meeting.
Jeff, you missed my whole point. My whole point is we have to authorize that a letter be sent. Authorize that a letter be sent. And the question is, Fred, you find it so amusing.
I do, because you don't understand what we've gone through the last 2 months, the same crap. And nobody's been able to figure it out yet, so you let me know when you do.
Steve,
Okay.
The motion on the floor was to direct Travis to prepare a letter based on an available template. It can then be circulated, but it goes to project review for,
And when is
for
this?
due consideration, and then it can be vetted and sent out.
It can't be sent unless the council authorizes it to be sent.
The project review committee
Project
has
review has
authority
that
to
authority.
issue
To
comment
send something,
letters.
That's why
to
I'm
send a
laughing.
letter on
Because they
behalf
do
of
it
the
anyway.
council?
We have a resolution to that.
That's why I'm
from
laughing.
several years ago.
In case you were
Only for
wondering,
type
because they're sending them from
issues.
committees. All these letters are getting sent from committees.
When
Not
it's
only
time
one.
sensitive.
They just did that.
There's a-
Review
This is a good one.
Yeah.
But in this case, everyone on the committee will have a chance to see the draft, and you can either direct comment to the appropriate committee or attend the meeting.
Well, this is even
They'll be
more
able to get it done
shattering
now.
than I ever thought, because I'm actually agreeing with Fred for the first time.
This was done over a year ago, we argued about this.
The council should speak with the council's voice, and we have, right now, an awareness of the issue. We know what we want to say. I don't think there's any dissent that the council wants to send a letter registering our concern, or however it should be properly stated. And the way it's going to be properly stated is we're going to work on that. But we know the concept, we know the idea, and we should vote to send a letter.
Now, you newspaper guys, don't fail to mention that we agree.
First time in history.
So,
I think we're gonna call a vote.
I have one motion on the floor, which has been approved and seconded and discussed.
It wasn't voted.
No, we discussed it.
We're in discussion.
We've been in
You
discussion.
said it.
No, I said it was on the floor, I may have said the wrong word, but it has been, was made, I think I said approved, that it should have been made and seconded, so you're correct.
Just to make sure, it includes being sent.
So the authorization for sending is going to come from the committee.
As long as it includes being sent, I think that's what.
Yeah, I think we're making a mistake. You want to leave the authority in a different committee to send or to not send it?
No,
That committee has that.
Wait a minute. It's understood that a letter is going to go out. It's just, we want to review what the wording of the letter is in the context of, I'm not going to approve a letter tonight, I haven't seen it. So it's understood that a letter is going to go out in support of these Pennsylvania towns. That's not, I don't think it's a question anymore.
Yes, right. To meet the deadline.
Mine is a procedural point that we should approve the letter, and if we want to add, as it is finalized and crafted by the project review committee, I mean, that's, but I want to make sure that.
You can always take a tally after the project review reviews it, okays it, put it out, and wait for everybody to vote.
We're gonna take a tally on it before it goes to the committee, and then it'll be crafted on the minute.
Boy, this is not how councils are supposed to, you can't take votes outside of meetings. That's not how council or anybody is supposed to
Right,
work.
but this committee is allowed to do that on a time-sensitive issue.
I would like to see that resolution, now, if you can find it. Because you said there was a resolution.
No, it's a series, it's going to be a series.
No, there is a resolution that was done last year or 2 years ago supposedly. I'd like to see the resolution, how it's written. Because I've always objected to sending them out of committees. I've always objected.
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Okay, so anyway, there is a motion on the floor, and it has been seconded. So I guess we've discussed it, we'll call for a vote.
That is what I was calling.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
The motion is carried.
Roy, on the suggestion, obviously you're gonna send it to all appropriate agencies,
Well,
governors, all that nonsense.
In a CC.
Pertinent,
yeah.
Sure, of course.
They have asked that we at least get this to the governor's office, and I think in our case, although we know we'll make sure from our
All of
township,
Pennsylvania.
that our
Anybody who's
representatives are aware.
anybody who has any pull, obviously, on that.
Yeah, you want to send it to Wayne County Commissioners, the whole,
Sure, yep.
so they know you're supporting them.
I think we need a more egregious policy to get these things.
We'll strike and discuss that.
Yes, we'll put that on.
Okay, is there other old business? Okay, under new business, we have a draft letter of support for the Sullivan County Trailkeeper in regards to a grant application.
This letter went out in advance to you. We received the response last Wednesday from the Sullivan County Planning Office on behalf of all the partners involved in the project. And the grant would cover 3 phases of work. The first is to hire a website consultant to do some further mapping improvements on trailkeeper.org to improve the functionality of the site. The second part of the funding would paid for field work to go do ground testing of the trail data that they have. And thirdly, it's to sponsor outreach and educational events with a focus on school children for trails. Other than that, you read the letter, and it's pretty straightforward. This is the organization that is receiving our Recreation Achievement Award for this very project, and the origins of it were in a technical assistance grant from 2012 that the council awarded.
So this is not a new grant?
Well, it's a new phase of the project that they want to do more with what they've done. Trailkeeper.org exists currently, but those 3 areas of improvement are what they intend to fund if they're successful with this DEC grant.
I think
And
it's a
the
great
deadline
I
is
think it's a
tomorrow.
great project.
Is there a motion? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Call for a vote?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
I don't understand it. I don't understand where the money's coming from, that's my.
Not the motion.
DEC.
You're DEC.
Office of Environmental Justice.
You're responsible for your taxes.
We want more.
Yeah, of course.
I give more.
Like that one, thank you. Any other old business? Okay. Public comment.
What, did you say any other old business or new
Yes,
business?
new business.
I'm sorry, new business. I'm gonna make a suggestion, and I'm beating this horse pretty good, but, when you haven't concluded your business, you can recess your meeting, and you can reconvene it. Why wouldn't we reconvene on the 28th of April, at our, what is it?
Awards banquet?
At our awards banquet, we'll have a quorum, we'll have it up, we can take a simple vote on the letter, and by that time it'll be fully vetted, and then it's coming from the council.
There isn't always a quorum at these dinners.
Well,
If that forces you to attend though, I'm all for it. It was my plan that we would phrase it that it was coming from the full council because you have expressed consensus that everybody wants this letter sent. So I didn't anticipate that it would say the project review committee and be signed by Larry as chairperson. I thought it would be, because we're sending it out for email proxy vote essentially, that it would come from the full council. It would be the position of this organization to oppose this policy. Is that not how you saw it?
yes, that's the general idea, but when a council passes to send a letter to governors and people like that, it ought to be upon a vote on a known quantity. Fraser said, I'm not sure what it'll say. Jack just said, I'm not sure what it's gonna say. And it's a valid point.
That's why she's.
I learned this, I learned, what is a pig in a poke? I learned that. Does anybody know where that expression comes from? A poke is a bag. And when you went to the fair back in medieval times and you bought the pig and you took it home and you opened it, it was a dog or something, a cat. And so you never buy a pig in a poke. It's signing a letter that we don't know. It's hidden.
She's gonna
It's not
circulate it to us.
Huh?
She's gonna circulate it to us email and we'll.
And then if somebody objected or something, then what's their remedy?
We would have discussion at the meeting,
It'll get finalized at project review and sent.
at the project review.
Send me comments.
How are we gonna make sure it gets done?
And you could come too.
I just can't believe it.
What you saying, yeah?
Somebody can write off when it's time to leave.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment? Okay, hearing none. We do need to, we have a report from the personnel subcommittee. We need a motion to go to executive